Good evening, New Eden. I'm Ithica Hawk. I am joined here by Elise Randolph, the Bazzalizk, and Black Bart Pirate, and together we are sitting on the luxury of the caster's couch here about 4 days before the start of the Streamfleet Showdown Invitational Tournament on the 20th of April, the year of our Lord 2019, and we are here to tickle your eardrums with basically nonsense about tournaments and what we think is going to happen in the next couple of days, which will inevitably be completely wrong, and you can point at us and laugh. But until then, our knowledge is clearly better than yours, and we're going to get started. So, Elise Randolph, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm actually super excited. Like, this event kind of snuck up on me. I knew it was coming, and I knew exactly when it was coming. But now that it's like a couple days away, I'm super amped. I've been looking at the team list, and I've been looking at the comp list, and I'm excited to see how it all plays out. There's some really stacked teams in here.
Oh yeah, there's some teams who've been around for years. There's some new teams. There's plenty of people who've got something to prove, and also just some new people to the tournament scene. And it's pretty good just to see, you know, like tournaments continuing. Obviously, with the lack of Alliance tournament this year. Bazzalizk, I mean, are you excited for another?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the format that Jin'taan's come up with looks really, really decent. The lack of Logi is going to be interesting. I mean, guaranteed explosions, so you know everyone likes explosions. That's good for everyone. Like Elise was saying, a lot of names that you recognise in these team lists as well. So yeah, some hot talent showing up. Should be decent.
Hot talent. You heard it here first, boys. It is hot talent. And Black Bart Pirate, how are you today? You doing well?
I'm doing really good. I didn't actually know that this was going to be a thing until about 2 weeks ago, and so I was able to kind of sneak in here a little bit. I harassed Satonia during a stream, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I got you a spot," and I was like, "Oh, all right." So I've been reading really, really goodly and trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing, but I think we're going to be okay.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's pretty much spot on then. So since you've been reading so goodly, you can take us through the format of the Streamfleet Showdown Invitational and how it differs from Alliance Tournament. Please take.
So we got this kind of cool setup. If anyone's ever watched StarCraft, we're doing this sort of day 1, day 2 GSL format. So there's only 8 teams. It's not like the Alliance Tournament where we had like 50-something. But every team gets to play several games before they get eliminated, which is really cool. There's multiple opportunities. Even if you like lose your first match, you can still come back and win the entire thing. And even if you lose your second match, then you're out. But that's okay. You deserve to be out if you lose twice. We have 8 teams going. Day 1, we're going to be seeing the top 4. Day 2, we're going to be seeing number 1. And like we said, we're not doing any logistics whatsoever here. We're having 6-man teams fighting up against each other, kind of sticking to, on day 1, we're doing battle cruiser down. Day 2, there's going to be a couple battleships popping up. No Logi, pure DPS, lots of people are going to be dying. Should be really exciting. I've heard a rumor that a lot of the matches are lasting, you know, we're not getting any 10-minute matches here. I'm sure that'll totally change, but we'll definitely have an opportunity to see some like really good action in a small amount of time, which is perfect.
Yeah, Jin made a kind of handy flowchart which shows how the game progresses for you as a winner or a loser. I mean, losers go down and down and then you're out, but it kind of, you have this best of 2 situation going on as you get through into the next day, and then I think the final, correct me if I'm wrong, Elise, the final will be a full-on best of 3 between the first place and second place team.
You're not wrong. Yeah, the final is a best of 3. And so we'll have kind of similar ban mechanics to which we haven't really gotten into yet. We'll have similar ban mechanics, kind of like the Alliance tournament.
Awesome. Bazzalizk, I mean, you've obviously done some stuff with us with the Alliance tournament before, but I can't remember, were you involved with the last Streamfleet?
I think I was, yeah.
And how do you expect the changes from the last time? Because last time obviously it was just a single day. Now we've expanded up to 2 days. I mean, how does this compare to the Alliance tournament? Is it still just as much effort and practice for the teams, or do you think it's a little bit easier for people to get?
On the practical side from the team's perspective into how much work is going into it, I mean, when you've got the 2 different sets of comps, I imagine it's going to take a lot more effort to, you know, you got to test out 2 different sets. You've got 10 comps in total to try out rather than, I think it was just 5 or 6 last time that they had. But I mean, 6-man teams I think is a really good number to have. I think if you have too few people, then it becomes a little bit rock, paper, scissorsy. And if you have too many, then it becomes a little bit... individual pilot doesn't have too much impact, whereas I think 6 is right in the middle. I think it's right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, with a lot of the event stuff was 5-on-5. The Amar Championship was 4-on-4. That was difficult to fly in because you lose one member, it can just snowball because each individual member missed 25% of your team. But I think you're right. 6-on-6 is definitely going to be enough to be team compositions, but still emphasizing individual pilots. Elise, you've been heavily involved with the Pandemic Legion team for years in Alliance tournament. How do you think about the numbers are going? Like, do you think 6-on-6 is good, or do you prefer the old, 12-on-12 days?
I really like kind of smaller formats, right? So for a while we had like 12-on-12 in the Alliance tournament, and it was a little bit too chaotic, and it made testing really hard because you needed at least 24 people to test. And so the quality of the matches wasn't nearly as high, right? And plus, you do some like wonky, cheesy stuff, like just zerging around and just mass damage or mass EHP, and it's kind of hard to break through. With 6-on-6, it's every pilot matters, in the sense that you don't really have any setups where we used to call it like a bitch ship that would just provide links, or would just provide remote sensor boosters, or just provide some sort of assistance for everyone else. But no, in this, every single ship matters, and your positioning matters. If you get out of position, your team gets punished, right? So it really does favor the teams who practice a lot and know how to fly with one another.
Yeah, on that, we've got quite a few teams who have been around the block a few times. Just as a little casual segue into the teams we've got, you got teams like Templis Calciv, who known for knocking Hydra out the Alliance tournament a couple of years back. They have definitely done this before. They're led by the last Spartan. He is a pretty experienced tournament captain by this point. He's been in Event tournaments, he's been in the Alliance tournament, so that is a very experienced team. Then you've got teams like Zero Talent, led by Hoodie Mafia, formerly of the Tuskers, and Hard Knocks, with a bunch of people with a lot of tournament pedigree. You got Kaelan Darklight, you got Annie Gardet from Volta, you got Josie Sampano, who was, I believe, in Northern Coalition, and Stay Frosty before that. So you've got some of these teams who have done this before. That's pretty goddamn cool. At the same time, you've got, brave nubbies coming in. They've got a bunch of people who are brand new. You got RVB, and you got like Gal Mill and so on. I mean, BBP, break it down. What are your favorite teams just looking at this roster?
I'm seeing about 4 or 5 teams that all of them are like former tournament, veterans. I mean, Zero Talent, that's pretty much the remaining members of the NC team, plus some of the little bit of Tuskers, a little bit of, I think, a band apart. Those are the guys that kept playing after, the tournament was canceled, I guess is a good way to put it. So they're pretty good. Spooky Action at a Distance, I've seen a couple of like very older, maybe not necessarily tournament veterans per se, but they're like small gang veterans. So both of those teams are really good ones to look at. Templis Calciv, I've actually been flying a bunch with those guys on TQ right now, like on live servers on a day-to-day basis. So I know that they're all very active and they're all playing right now. And that's always been a thing that, we've seen over the years, is people that are actually logging in and playing. Yeah, it's not the same thing as having a 6v6, but it does help quite a bit. And while Brave Nubbies, I mean, yeah, it's a new team, like newbies, quote unquote, but they have Yukiko. He's been flying in the tournament for I think this 3 or 4 years. He's been in 3 or 4 ATs at this point. All 4 of those teams, Templis, Brave, Spooky Action, and Zero Talent, those are all I recognize half of the people on both of those teams, which makes me, already I want to say, oh yeah, these are the guys, these are the people to watch. So there's my top 4 right there.
Oh man, but you can't count out Red versus Blue. They do have my favorite pilot in the entire thing, and I think he's actually just an alternate, but Taylor Moon Mahiisti, it's my favorite character name of all these. Though coming in second is Spooky Action at a Distance. They one of their alternates is Well Memed Sir. So I mean, not bad in terms of the naming. And as an FC, I used to broadcast targets by their names, not by what was important to shoot. So I mean, it's a thing you have to be aware of.
I mean, personally, my favorite name is definitely Old Daddy J's Best Boys, because that is quite simply an exquisite name. House Gundor, you can't rule out House Gundor is also a great name as well. That's Dirk Stetile, who's captaining that team. And I mean, Goons have never had a lot of success at tournaments, other than the one they run themselves. I believe they do okay in that, which is highly suspicious. But in terms of the Alliance tournament, they haven't really done very well. They didn't even get in for many years. They always failed in the buy-in stage to make it through. They did 2 years ago, got absolutely deep-dicked and went out pretty much straight away. And then last year, they did what I believe we were referring to as the Mittani maneuver, when they just simply brought the Mittani along, and everyone was like, hang on, is he going to be like heavily tanked? He's in an Augur Navy issue, or is he bait? Like, what the hell? I mean, number one disappointment, obviously, Mittani's not flying in this tournament. I think that's a horrible mistake. They could have easily brought him along again. But, you know, I always like the Goons for trying. So,
on something about the Goon team, so weirdly enough, the Goons have done an internal tournament for like a year or two. This format is a lot more similar to the internal tournament that the Goons run. And while obviously, when the Goons run their internal tournament, the Goons win every time. They actually have more of a kind of like a 6 and a 7-man team comp experience than I think most of these other teams do. Because some of these other guys, you know, they've done EVT and doing like the 5-man, they've done the Immortal Tournament 4-man, and they've done the Alliance Tournament at 10. The Goons actually have a lot of practice doing this kind of 6 and 7 people at a time. So House Gundor, you know, they're going to blow the horn and they're coming for us. Like, all of these teams are really, really strong. The only one I don't really recognize anyone, honestly, is Old Daddy J's Best Boys, but they won on name alone, right?
yeah, I mean, those are a bunch of the GMVA Gal Mill guys. Juliana Sauter, roleplay extraordinaire. You can find him on Twitter, usually complaining about the Kadari state oppressing Galenti or something. Like, he's hardcore into that stuff. And most of the guys there are also GMVA. Nillis Vaus, former Tuskers, and I believe St. Michael's Soul has been around tournaments for some time as well. I mean, who are Gundor playing? Gundor are playing Brave Nubbies. Bazzalizk, I want you to right now tell me how this match is going to go down between House Gundor and Brave Nubbies.
Well, I mean, to start with, the only thing I've noticed about the Goon team really is that they've chosen a rather phallic logo for their, you know, to represent them in this tournament. I believe it's like a horn of Gondor, whatever they use in Lord of the Rings, except it has like V stripes on it and kind of looks like a penis. But
yeah, that's their typical one.
It's the Horn of Gundor. Whenever the Goons are threatened, they blow the Horn of Gundor, and all inactives come to their aid.
But
How
will
it's
they
gonna
blow,
go?
or will Brave Nubbies be blowing on?
I'm gonna go contrary to what BBP just said, because I think Goons have been categorically not very good in the tournaments that I've watched them in, and Brave Nubbies, I think Yukiko's got a lot of talent. So yeah, I think when it's this 6v6 environment where he's only got 5 newbies to order around, I think he'll have a lot of success. So my money's on Nubbies to take it. Brave Nubbies.
Yeah, Elise,
And
as
they've got
someone
the
who's
little Ewok icon as well.
at least as someone who's a bit more familiar with the TQ politics, can you confirm or deny, is it possible for Goons during the tournament to light a Sino and drop in the Supercap fleet, or is that something that is against the rules in this particular environment?
That is actually against the rules, so there will be no bosuns missed and no bosuns hit. So I mean, that's good. Kind of would be funny to see the Goon standing fleet kind of just come in and just nuke the Brave Newbies, but no, no Sinos. They just have to take the normal ships. It'll be on Thunderdome. No supers around.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure dicking on Brave Newbies is a task devoted only to by PL anyway. So. Now, Bart,
Yeah, there are Brave Newbies. No one else can mess with them.
taking ownership. Bart, let's look at some other ones that we have here, matchups. We have Zero Talent, your alma mater, NC Dot, basically, and some Tuskers sprinkled in there for additional flavor, going up against the mighty Red versus...
Well, so here's the thing. What I have to go, and this is a purely emotional thing. I'm not pulling the comps up. I'm not doing anything else. Red versus Blue is pretty inactive, but Zero Talent has both Jose and Bap on it, and they are two of the saltiest motherfuckers I've ever seen in Yvonne. So all that Red versus Blue has to do is like do anything to either of them, like jam them. I don't think they can jam. They can use they could damp them. They could kite away from them. They could tackle them and hold them in the corner. and the zero talent team would just fall apart. ECM is allowed? Alright, ECM's allowed. I know that like ECM nowadays is a little different than it was like a year ago. So that's kind of the thing. Yeah, new ECM rules. So if you don't know, in ECM, you no longer make it so the enemy can't do anything at all. They can still target the person ECMing them. However, it's still pretty good in this kind of situation. So I'm wondering if Red versus Blue, if they kind of pay attention to this, they listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, jam out BAP, and you will win 100% of the time. Okay? I'm giving you a pro tip right now. Jam BAP, you win.
I mean, I actually agree with you. I think this is a fantastic analysis because I've flown with most of the people in this team in some part or another, especially in tournament situations. And yep, I completely agree. I mean, Annie Gardet, one of the captains of the Volta team, Hoodie, obviously did his EVAN-T team and heavily involved with the Tuskers team as well. I mean, I think it's fair to say this is team tryhard. Like, I mean, fair play to them, they're going to do really well, they are very talented individuals, but holy mother of God, these are the people who are up and they are practicing and they are taking the win from other teams. They're doing it out of execution and just basically being really fucking good pilots. But what's the one thing we know about, you know, really good tryhard pilots? They are salty as shit. Elise, can you agree with that one as well?
I mean, people can get salty, and it's really frustrating, especially when you test a lot. Because you have an idea when you're testing how comps should work with one another, and if the outcome doesn't match what you predicted, you just go around blaming people on your team or the enemy or your skirmish partner, being like, "Yo, you guys didn't fly right. Do it again." And so, as a match like breaks down, once you've practiced a lot, if you lose a match that's close, in your head you're like, "Oh shit, I know what to do on the next one. I'll just make sure we don't make this mistake." And then you try and do the next match again, and you're like, oh shit, I'm in actually the lower bracket. Oh goddamn. So the wheels can come off, but this zero talent team is super stacked. It's stacked from top to bottom. Like, their alternates are stacked. It's absolutely disgusting. They've got fantastic pilots. They've got fantastic theory crafters. I just don't know what else to say. It's the most stacked team in the entire format, and if this team went to the Alliance tournament, it would also be like definitely top 3 team.
I was gonna say, like, so Jose, Nitsapar, and BAP were the people that ran the NC team last year, and Nitsapar is the person who ran the NC team the year before that, and the Shiva team the year before that. Like, I don't think he's actually finished less than a 4th place ever that he's been playing Eve. You know, this really does feel, looking at it, and I guess I think technically I'm still in NC. They haven't kicked me yet, but he is definitely a, this is like the dads deciding to go to the Little League, like, baseball team, right? And they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna pitch at them, but we're not really gonna throw the balls in like a nice way where they can hit them. We're just gonna like bean the kids in the head.
Yeah, there's gonna be some concussions for sure.
You're saying their team of zero talent is not accurate then, basically. You think they all stacked the room with talent?
I think they might be trying to trick people with their
I think they're lying. It's like when you type, "Yo, I'm tackled in the belt," in local, when you're hunting people. You're not actually tackled in the belt. That's what they're going for.
Oh, I see.
They're tricky.
Psychology, some kind of Jedi mind trick going on.
Yeah. It's not really seen too much in EVE Online, but I mean, maybe they'll make it popular.
We also have matchups continuing. We have Tempest Calcif going up against Stay Frosty. So you have the faction warfare role players and vets from tournaments going up against the Kaldari Tempest Corp. So that is, Stay Frosty is Rix Javix's corp from Losec, self-declared pirate lord of Losec. He's got a bunch of guys who have been in the Alliance tournament teams from Stay Frosty. They also were the Charlatans team, I think, if I remember correctly, from EVAN-T, and they did aggressively average. I'm basically permanently banned from ever picking against them though, because every time I predict that they will lose, they win, and they take the video of me predicting that they will lose and they turn it into an advert. This has happened twice, so I'm pretty sure Stay Frosty are going to win this one very handily. Unfortunately for Templars, they don't stand a chance. That's just simply the way of things. I'm sorry.
Templars is one of the teams that they're going to win Alliance Tournament 2020. That's like, you can just book it right now. This team is stacked. People always doubt them, but they fly incredibly, incredibly well. Part of the reason why they're so successful isn't because they theorycraft better than anyone else. It's just that they're on that next level in terms of I don't know, it's like their wingmanness, if that's like a factor. They fly together so often, they can predict what everyone else on their team is going to do and act accordingly. So they never get stuck out of position. They always make the right decisions. And, you know, they're just a fantastic team. I wouldn't be surprised if they surprise some people.
Bazzalizk, you agree with that, or you think Stay Frosty, as I believe, will take the...
I think from my memory from tournaments, Alliance tournaments, I've usually sort of overrated Stay Frosty, I think, a little bit. And I think Templars were Snuff's practice partner, like, last year. And I thought they were pretty well, and they did reasonably well. I think they got top 8, didn't they? I think so.
Yeah, they were like a super team.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good matchup either way. As for who's going to win, I don't know, who knows. Templars, I mean, I have no idea what my prediction rate is. It's probably crap. Templars, I guess. I don't know.
One of the things about Templars, though, is they have ice water in their veins. Like, the last Spartan is cool under pressure. If you guys watch any of their matches, like, you can see them make a mistake, realize it's a mistake, and swap to it and not try and panic. And panic is really the killer when it comes to these Alliance Tournament teams and this format, right? So if you're like, oh, geez, guys, I think we're making a mistake, and you start doubting the call. If any rank and file starts falling out of line, then that's when the mistakes happen, and mistakes will kill your team. But these guys, they don't make mistakes. They're just cool, calm under pressure, and when push comes to shove, they just know how to win.
I think what you've done is spectacularly jinx them, Elise.
You totally did, but I'm gonna go for the most important stat of all. All right, if you look at their Z kill, Templars Calcif's entire team is currently actively playing together on TQ, where Stay Frosty's kind of doing stuff, and I know that sounds really weird, but it means that, like, these guys are obviously, so practice-wise, right? Let's say that everybody's practicing on a level of Alliance tournament point, where they're like, we're practicing 3 days a week for something because we really, really, really just want to win the Streamfleet Invitational. Even still, Templars is out there, like, their Alliance's top 10 people are their team for this. They're out there flying together. The last Spartan is their team captain. He's also their Alliance leader. He's also FCing fleets every single day. Like, these guys are out there doing stuff. They've been doing stuff for years now. What really has Stay Frosty done recently? Like, we always talk about them as like, oh yeah, tournament veteran. Rick Chavik's tournament veteran. And it's like, when was the last time he was actually doing stuff, right?
Yeah, so on TQ, the Stay Frosty guys, they don't fly in groups nearly as much as the Templars guys, right? A lot of them were like solo pirates. They fly really well, but I don't think they have the same experience of flying together as the Templars.
Yeah, like, he's out there, and like they said, you know, the last Spartan is FCing them every single day. You know, they're used to this. They're like, yeah, you know, he's our daddy. He's going to tell us what to do. He's going to get us kills. I don't know. I have to say Templars, and I can say that because I won't be jinxing Stay Frosty if I say one way or another. So I'm feeling Templars, and I have to root for them a little bit. They're kind of my friends right now, so I am biased, totally biased. But
Stay Frosty does have one advantage, though. Stay Frosty has the best artwork and the best swag of all of the teams in the entire tournament.
Top tier propaganda department.
And also they've apparently been practicing.
Is it a Stay Frosty hat or a GMVA hat that you've got, Ithica?
I have a Stay Frosty hat, given to me by Rick Stuvix himself. It was a wonderful gift, and I wear it with pride when I root on my boys and Stay Frosty. Please don't make an advert of me, you're definitely going to win. Thank you. Now, moving on. Templars Calcif, of course. Caldari, Faction War role players. Now we have another Faction War role-playing team in here, and that's Old Daddy J's Best Boys, who are Galenti, the sworn rivals of the Caldari in EVE Online, the MMORPG from CCP Games in Iceland. Now, personally, I think it'd be pretty goddamn cool if we had Tempest Castle go up against Old Daddy J's Best Boys in the final, because that would just put it to rest. They could put some sort of like bet on it, you know, like loser surrenders the war zone or something like that. Like that'd be pretty cool. But those guys, you said Last Spartan and these boys all fly together. I'm pretty sure so do most of the guys in Old Daddy J's Best Boys. They roam around, they fly together, they do lots of fleets together. Julianus, usually drinking at the same time, is a lot of fun to fly with. And most of these guys are quite competent small gang, small ship pilots.
I guess it kind of depends. At the end of the day, yeah, they are competent small ship pilots. I'm peeping on their ship right now, so it looks like a lot of them are from the lower Accords, is what I can see. Like, not all of them, but a decent percentages. So, you know, they're out there, they're doing kind of the small stuff. They're doing not necessarily participating in faction warfare as a mechanic, which I can understand that, but they are participating in the mechanics of ganking people in low sec with, you know, 10 times as many ships as they have. So I'm a little worried that they might have some trouble in this because they won't be able to bat phone Snuffbox to bail them out when they bite off too much they can chew.
Speaking of bat phoning Snuffbox, the Bazzalizk, as a former, I think, member of Snuffbox.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think of your low sec pets, as they were, Gal Mill?
I think coming up against Spooky Action is going to be really hard. Obviously, Spooky Action, the reigning champions from the inaugural Streamfleet Showdown Invitational 1. I think it was just, there was no 1 at the time, was there? The second one wasn't around. It was just you know, World War 1 wasn't called World War 1 at the time, it was just called The War.
It'd be kind of leading up for a sequel if you called it World War 1. Everyone's like, excuse me?
What's going on here? Yeah, now I've left Snuffbox, I'm actually in a corp with Beatron in Spooky Action. And obviously all the other guys in that team, Vordak, Wild Things, I think they're from like Thermodynamics, Thera sort of group. All very competent pilots, so unfortunately for GMVA, I think Spooky Action are going to take them down fairly swiftly.
Yeah, we were talking about how stacked Zero Talent is, but Spooky Action at a distance is also super stacked with pilots. Like if you just go through, like Vordak, a name you'll remember. El Diablo del Rojo, a name you'll remember. War Destined, a name you'll remember from like watching Alliance tournaments. Blood Ruin, like all these guys have played in Alliance tournaments on various teams. There's like some tri-pilots in there, some skill yourself teams, just really, really like top class finishers for the last 2 or 3 Alliance tournaments. And they know what to do.
Yeah, and something about this, I actually kind of look at this as with the specific setup and the rules for this tournament, the kind of piloting that Spooky Action at a distance is well known for on TQ translates incredibly well over here, because this is kind of like let's say you look at the rules, right? We have this setup where, you know, you can bring a battle cruiser, you know, some kind of like cool pirate cruiser and some kind of navy cruiser. Like it's like the perfect small gang. It's like a 7-man, like a 6-man like small gang fleet that you're going out and roaming with. That's what the people of Spooky Action at a distance do on a day-to-day basis. Like all they do is basically practice this, but sometimes they're going up against, you know, 2, 3, 4 times their numbers. So, you know, you have a bunch of these pilots that are like, they're infamous. Like you see these guys go into your systems in EVE, like in modern TQ, and you're kind of like, oh yeah, we don't engage them because they're just going to kind of kite us out and kill us and run away. They're so prepared for this. They've been practicing this for years and years and years, and now there happens to be a tournament rule set that is perfect for them. So like they're also really scary in a totally different way than Zero Talent is. Like individually piloting with the ships that they're going to be bringing, like they have so much practice on this. They know these ships like the back of their hands. So I think they're also a really strong team.
Yeah, I think basically we've got 8 pretty good teams. Like every team has got their strengths here. Like there's some teams that have got the pedigree, there's some teams that have got the TQ play style. You've got teams that are just good at what they do, and there's teams that are going to shake things up because people don't know what to expect from them. But speaking of expectations, I'm going to put some questions to you now. Now I'm going to get involved as well, and if we need a tiebreaker, Mr. Jin'taan is going to give us some advice from the background, but only if we have a tiebreak. So we're going to try and predict the entire bracket now. So I'm going to go around you one by one. So the first match is going to be Spooky Action versus Old Daddy J's. Elise, who's winning this one?
I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a shaky start, but Spooky Action takes it.
Bazzalizk?
I'm going for Spooky Action easily. I know GMVA are pretty decent pilots, but B-Tron and the rest of his mates that he's going Spooky Action are also really, really good. So yeah, Spooky Action.
I'm going to go Old Daddy J, so unless BBP, do you also agree with that, or are you going to Spooky Action as well?
So I'm gonna make Jin'taan talk, but I'm gonna explain why first. I'm gonna go with Old Daddy J's because even though I just said Spooky Action's probably really good, I've never seen like these elite PvP groups not just suck so bad in the AT. So I'm predicting that they're just gonna feed somehow. So Old Daddy J's, Jin'taan.
The only problem about Old Daddy J's is they can't bring in Macarials. Jin'taan, you can type in chat. I don't know if we can hear you, but you can tell us who you think is going to win. You are not allowed to be biased, of course, but you have to pick one.
I think I'm going to go for Spooky Action at a distance. I had the chance to watch all of their matches, you know, up close and personal in SSI 1, and they were really, really impressive. They were so good at cutting across the battlefield, and, you know, it's really hard to see this when you're watching from an outside perspective. Like, it's just so hard to get the camera angles in, but when I was watching their piloting, they were always really good about placing ships in a way that would prevent them from moving to where they needed to be. Like, they had this really keen sense of battlefield understanding, and I think that's so important in this kind of tournament, especially given how fast day one has been. Like, day one is ridiculously fast, and you can die in like an instant if you mess up your transversal.
Nice, so that is 3 for Spooky Action, 2 for Old Daddy J's. Jin'taan, thank you very much for coming out of your box. You can climb back into it now, and we will continue. So, Elise, RVB versus Zero Talent. Is it going to be the upstarts, or is it going to be the try?
I think Zero Talent's got this one for sure.
Personally,
I'm going for a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure just Zero Talent. They've just got too much talent.
Bazzalizk?
I mean, the only person I really know on Red vs Blue is Insidious Sainthood from seeing him post solo kill mails in BSB. Whereas, as BBP was saying, Zero Talent does actually have a lot of talent, so I'm going to go Zero Talent.
Cool, and that completely negates the point of asking BBP for his opinion. So we move on now to Templess versus Stay Frosty. We'll start with you, BBP. Templess versus Stay Frosty.
I'm going Templess because they better win, or I'm going to give them so much shit.
Bazzalizk, Templess or Stay Frosty?
I'm going to go Templess. They seem decent. We practiced with them last year, so yeah, why not?
2 for Templess. I, of course, am legally obligated to go for Stay Frosty. Elise, what about you?
I like Templess. I mean, I've been talking them up all day, so I guess Templess has to go.
Right, nice. So that is Templess taking that one. Then finally we have House Gundor versus Brave Nubbies. Elise, House Gundor or Brave?
This is actually pretty tricky, but so Brave have, as you guys mentioned, Yukiko Kami as one of their like veterans on the team, but he's their veteran logistics pilot, and there's no logistics in this format. And House Gundor, they kind of know this format. I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go with the House Gundor on this one, but it'll be a squeaker. It'll be real close.
So you're going for Gundor. What about you, Basil?
I'm going to go for Brave. I think Yukiko, even if he is a logistics pilot, the sort of awareness that comes with flying in tournaments regularly is more important than the specifics of what ship you normally fly.
Nice. I've already marked down on my piece of paper here which team I'm going to go for, but in order to keep the tension high, BBP, I'm going to ask you to choose blind. Is it House Gundor or is it Brave?
Oh yeah, I'm going for Goons here, because Goons are the best alliance in EVE Online in every single metric that...
Without a hint of irony in his voice.
Right, so in the next stage of the tournament then, we're going to...
Wait, Ithica, we didn't get yours. Hello?
Oh, I went for House Gundor, like, it was already on the paper.
Like, he knows.
You can't see the paper, bro.
I'm just like, I'm rooting for the Goons because everyone always roots against them. Like, I just enjoy when they win because they smug talk so hard that it's fantastic. And that's the entire reason why I want them to do well, basically. Plus, if they're busy doing this, they might forget to drop Titans when we raid through Delve. Now, in the next round, we're going to have Spooky Action going up against Tempest. So, Elise, who's going to win that one? Spooky Action or Tempest?
Tempest for sure. I mean, that's going to be one of the best matches of the day. But I think Tempest is going to pull it through. I don't even think it's going to be close. I think Tempest is just going to dominate too.
Yeah, that's actually a rematch of Streamfleet Invitational 1 final, I believe.
Yeah, they've got that chip on their shoulder, Tempest. They need to prove that they deserve that dub.
Yeah. Bazzalizk, what about you? Spooky Action or Tempest?
No, I'm still going with Spooky Action. Tempest may have got through to this hypothetical round, but yeah, Spooky Action, in my eyes, is going to be too good, and they're going to take him down again.
And Mr. Black Bart Pirate?
I think Spooky Action is going to choke under pressure, knowing that if they lose, then all of their gains made in the last one mean absolutely nothing. As I have said that now all of their gains in the last one mean absolutely nothing if they...
I'm also going to go for Tempest. And finally, we want Zero Talent versus Goons. There's an interesting one. Black Bart Pirate. Zero Talent versus Goons. Are you going to pick the easy option here, or are you going to try and play the odds and sound like a savant?
Alright, so I'll actually give like a proper, like serious business looking at it. Having looked over the Goons comps that they're using in day one, I think that they are going to just be out-mechanicked by having like 3 actual ridiculously experienced AT people that just set up their setups. So some of the Goon comps are very, very questionable, where all the Zero Talent ones are like, okay, yeah, I look at this and it's like, that makes a lot of sense. I see what you guys are trying to do there. So, yeah. Going with Zero Talent.
Bazzalizk?
I'm going to go Goons just because, like you said a minute ago, it'd be funny if they were to smug out against all the AT veterans and Zero Talent.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I agree with you. The heart says Goons, but the head says Zero Talent in that matchup. Elise, which one would you go?
I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to say Zero Talent win with their Cyclone Gila Moa comp, and Goons can bring any... They could probably bring 2 comps, and they'd probably still suffer pretty hard.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is like you look at the Zero Talent things and you can see like this really clear, each individual one is like, I understand what you are trying to do here. And then you look at the Goon ones and you're like, oh, you brought a Caracal Navy issue, but then you've also brought like some other weird stuff with that instead of going for, like, it's like they're trying to combine 2 or 3 different ideas at once. So that's kind of like I see what your brains are doing here, ZTA. And for Goon, it's like, I see that you guys are probably mining Spod while doing this, and somebody jumped into the system, and you're like, oh god, I have to pull my excavators, just put a ship in there, I don't care.
Right, so I make it then 2 for Zero Talent and 2 for Goons, which means we have another tiebreaker. So we have to bring in Miss Jin'taan once again. Zero Talent or Goons? So what does the script say? Have you got the script for Nick?
As a loyal member of the Imperium, I am obliged to mention that Goonswarm will reign victorious over all of their opponents in perpetuity.
Wow, so Zero Talent are now knocked out of the winners bracket, meaning that the day 1 final would be between Tempest and the Goons. No one saw that one coming from the start. The Caldari role players, tournament veterans, going up against Goons, who just happened to wander into a tournament and probably brought some ships with them that happened to fit into the room. Who's going to win that one? I mean, Black Bart Pirate, Tempest versus Goons. That's the biggest match of the day.
Oh, that's an easy one for Goons. Goons are just, they're too carefree and majestic, and just, you know, they don't really try that hard about this game. So, like, they're not going to get psyched out by Tempest, but I think Tempest is going to get so psyched out at the last minute by going up against those B guys that they're just going to fall apart. Like, they're not going to be ready for the fatigue of playing up against so many people.
So you reckon that Goons are just going to be so unpredictable that Tempest won't know how to deal with them because they don't follow the traditional tournament meta, they just do Goons?
I mean, they put Mittani in a polarized Harbinger, or a polarized Absolution, I think. So, like, we have already seen Goons don't care. They're like, yeah, we're going to do something weird. And what happens? Who cares? Worst case, we can be like, haha, we were just there having fun. So, yeah, like, I'm I'm feeling it. Goons go. Like, goons are the good guys. We all know it.
Yeah, we'd like to just take a brief moment to thank our sponsors for this podcast, the Imperium. May they reign. Now, Bazzalizk, what about you? Templars or Goonswarm Federation?
I have no idea, because I don't think I would have predicted either of these teams to get to this point, so...
Unfortunate you did.
Yeah, we did as a group, as a collective.
I'll
go Goons again, I guess. Yeah, let's go Goons. I mean,
oh, man.
what could go wrong? They could bring out their comps with random stuff thrown in, and yeah, like Black Bart said, unpredictability.
Elise,
fight an enemy doesn't know what they're doing.
Are you going to also go for Goons, or Templars stand a chance?
Absolutely not. Dude, this is going to be a 6-0 wipe. Templars is going to just destroy them. I mean, Templars, I'm going to predict their comp. They're going to take the Fleet Hurricane Sacrilege Navy Omen comp. It's probably the most garbage comp they have. And I think they're just going to 6-0 Goons. And I don't think Goons are going to care too much, but they did care enough to put Radicos on their team, so I think they want to win.
I mean, part of me wants to go with Goons, but I agree with you, and I do think Templars are going to win. I don't think it'll be like a complete wipe. I think Goons will meme their way to at least a couple of kills, but like I don't think they're going to be able to beat Templars overall. And that means we have yet another 2-all tie, so Jin'taan has to come in and tell us who is scheduled to win. Is he loyal to his Imperium Overlords, or is he loyal to the tournament scene? Who are you going to pick, Jin'taan?
As a loyal member of the Imperium, I am obliged to mention that the Goonswarm Federation will reign over their enemies in perpetuity.
So there we have it. This collective of tournament veterans, casters, and analysts has predicted of the 8 possible teams, the team that will do the best on day 1 of the Streamfleet Showdown Invitational is in fact House Gundor. We could have picked Spooky Action, we could have picked Templars, we could have picked Zero Talent, we could have picked 7 other teams, but yet somehow we've decided that the best team is the Goons. Now, when we started this podcast, did anyone think that we'd be saying that?
I had some suspicions.
I'm suspicious that we might all be afraid of Goon retribution on Tranquility, especially those in the larger alliances such as Pandemic Legion and Northern Coalition.
Shaking in my boots right now.
I do not identify as a member of Northern Coalition, and as it is 2019, I can identify as whatever.
Now, we mentioned briefly during that segue of probably total inaccuracy that there is different rules for compositions, and we briefly touched on some of them. So Black Bart, can you tell us a little bit about how the compositions for day 1 are going to take place? Like, what do the teams have to submit, what do they have to bring, and how the heck does this bollocks even work?
Alright, so each team on day 1, and it's important because day 2s are different, we're only talking about day 1 today, they had to submit 5 separate compositions. The compositions cannot have a copy of any ship, so like let's say in my composition 1 I put a Harbinger, I can no longer have a Harbinger in any of my other compositions. On top of that, each composition has to consist of 1 battle cruiser, 1 heavy assault cruiser or pirate faction cruiser, 1 navy cruiser or T1 cruiser, 1 interdictor or interceptor, but I think everyone's going interdictors on it. 1 Tech 2 or Tech, or I think the Kikimora, like 1 either Tech 2 destroyer or Kikimora, and then 1 destroyer or frigate that is Tech 1 only. So that sounds kind of complicated. We have all of it posted up somewhere. I'm looking at it right now, but basically it's set up so you're more or less set into a situation where you're taking 1 battle cruiser, 1 Tech 2 or equivalent cruiser, 1 Tech 1 or Navy cruiser, and then a couple destroyers is more or less what we see. And again, no ships can be copied, so it's kind of interesting that everybody has to create these, like, not only do they sort of synergize well with each other, but you can't just, I think we've seen in the past where people are like, oh, we're going to take a Svipul on every single fleet setup. It's like, no, you can take like 1 of those in 1 of your ships. You know, if you take a Drekavac in 1 of your fleets, you can only take 1 ship with the Drekavac. And also Jin'taan, now that I'm looking at this, I'm gonna PM you something, but there's something a rule break that I need you to check out.
Bazzalizk, so as BBP said, you can't have duplicates. You can only have, the vertex appears in one of your comps. It can't appear in any of the other comps, of which you submit 5 full compositions. Now, let's say you're a theory crafter of a top tier tournament team. Do you stack one comp with like all of the good stuff and basically dare people to, burn a ban on that comp? Or do you spread out the good stuff and try and make all the comps kind of, fieldable? I mean, how do you approach this as a theory crafter?
As a explicitly not professional theory crafter, my opinion on this is very much worthless. But I would assume not to stack all your best ships into one comp, because then you are just going to get banned out, and even if you think you are playing some kind of mental warfare, you've just ended up bringing a suboptimal set of ships. So my sort of surface level analysis says that's a bad idea. I'm just looking over the comps that have been submitted at the moment and looking for anything interesting. If you guys had spotted anything interesting that you wanted to talk about in any particular comps, any particular interesting ships that you've seen.
I'm sure Elise has got some comments on some of the ships that have been picked up in some of these comps here.
It's kind of cool if you look at the comps, like if you look at the teams that we've classified as like the favored champions and stuff like that, or favored matchups, Zero Talent and Templars and other teams like it, you see that they've got like, they don't just shove ships onto certain teams, right? They have different archetypes, right? So they've got a kiting team, a brawling blaster team, sort of a control team, an ACM team, and stuff like that, which is really, really heads up. Zero Talent and Templars, and actually Goonswarm took the Sacrilege as one of their hacks on their setups, and those are the only 3 teams to take the Sacrilege, which is arguably, I'd say, one of the stronger ships in the format, because just by virtue of its tank and potential damage output. So it's a beefy boy that's hard to break down. I'm surprised not even half the teams opted to pick it.
Yeah, I mean, as you point out, a couple of teams have taken that Sacrilege. There is one comp I want to direct your eyes to, Zero Talent Comp 3. It's Drekovic, Sacrilege, Gnomon Claw, Magus, Punisher. That seems pretty nasty to me. You've got a bunch of pretty tanky, tackly ships that can run in and get things, and then you've got the Drek, Sacrilege, and the Gnomon that can just absolutely shit out damage from various ranges. That's going to be a pretty scary comp to face, don't you think?
Yeah, that's actually super spooky, because it's kind of like a 2-stage team, right? So you can get that Punisher and Magus in for that heavy tackle, that Claw for the initial tackle as well, and survivable tackle, and then you just pile into them with your Drek, Sacrilege, and Navy Omen. But if things go awry, if bad things happen and your tackle wing just gets eviscerated, you can kite reasonably well with the Navy Omen, Sacrilege, and Drekovic. So you can apply your damage and kite around the arena and survive and pump out deeps. So it can be flown in a multitude of ways, which is really, really, really strong when you're talking about making just static comps.
I'm looking at somebody brought up something about an Ashimu, and I am taking a look at sort of, we have 2 teams that decided to bring in Ashimu. We have Red versus Blue and Stay Frosty, but they chose a very different setup around said Ashimu. And I'm looking at Red versus Blue, and they're taking a Drekovic, Ashimu, Omanavia Issue, Malediction, Pontifex, and Dragoon. And the thing about Ashimus is they're kind of terrible, just in general. They are decently long-range webs, pretty short range and not great DPS, and okay newts. But they're putting that as their Drekovic comp. And so what we have discovered on TQ over the last about 6 months is Drekovics are arguably overpowered in pretty much any situation that they're in. And when I look at the teams, I see that pretty much everyone who's using like their Drekovic team comp seems to be loaded really hard with a bunch of other important ships. Like we're seeing a lot of like Drekovic Vedmax, Drekovic Eagles, Drekovic Dimoses, which are, those 2 ships alone pretty much can, like if you ran into those on TQ, you'd be like, oh, okay, we have to actually bring a fleet to fight this. Red versus Blue is doing a Drekovic Ashimu setup, and I think that they might have not realized that they can have that, like, you should maybe have one really good comp not have one really good ship with a really bad comp around it. I'm kind of curious what other people think about that, because it doesn't look super strong. Like, they're putting arguably the strongest ship you could bring in this with the weakest ship, and it makes me get a little like, is it band bait? Is it, you know, them just thinking like, oh well, this way none of our comps are a key? I'm curious. So it's comp 5 for red versus blue.
I think the Ashmu itself is just bait, right? The ship looks great on EFT. You're like, oh, I got NOS, newts, and webs. I've got so much control and ECM and EMOR. It's great. It's great on paper, but then when you fly it in this format, you realize that it's really lacking in damage. It's really lacking in maneuverability. It's just bait, right? You can put so much better ships in its spot for similar effect. So I don't know. I think it's probably a little bit of band bait going on there, or maybe just forcing people to practice against it to waste some time. I don't know, but I mean, I will say one thing: these teams are all practicing extensively, and they had time to whittle these comps to exactly where they want it. So I'm sure they've got some sort of secret playstyle behind it that's gonna make me look ridiculous once they, you know, whip it out.
I mean, what about on the flip side? Let's say, for example, they did do a whole bunch of practicing and they found that the Drek, as BBP says, is just, you know, hideously overpowered, and they thought, well, if anyone's going to bring a Drek comp, then we'll ban it. And then they thought, well, what if people will do that to us? So they put a Drekovic in with a bunch of other ships that they don't really fit into the rest of their comps. I mean, they've got a Dragoon in there. A Dragoon is a very interesting pick for a destroyer because it is basically garbage. It does some things, and none of them very well. I mean, is there any really redeeming features to bring a Dragoon in this particular format?
I mean, I see what you're saying, and just have one comp with a good ship and the rest of them being trash, so everyone is inclined to ban. But you don't have to take every ship. Like, no one else, or I think, one other team took a Dragoon and that's it. Like, you don't have to take it. But the Dragoon is not super trash. You can build it really tanky. The Dragoon and Pontifex together, though, is a bit suspect because they're very similar.
Right, so if you look at it, Zero Talent also brought a Dragoon, but they brought it with a Stork, not a Pontifex, and they brought it with what I'm guessing, obviously we will find out when we see them, but the Executor Navy, Deimos, and Brutix, all of which, while they could be rail ships, they're all incredibly powerful blaster boats. So I'm wondering if, you know, I believe that the Dragoon gets a newt bonus of some kind. This is where we should have brought Satonia here. He could have told us all these kind of things, right? But I think the Dragoon gets like a newt bonus and drones, and I'm wondering if he's kind of like the anti-tackle, so that, you know, Zero Talents, like their blaster ships, can just get in there and blow stuff up. Yeah. Now, the more that we think about, the more we look at it, I think that the red versus blue, like that is the Drekovic's there to be like, haha, ban out this comp that kind of sucks, so we can bring something better.
Yeah, the Dragoon gets like the new range bonus and the NOS range bonus. So it's in your blaster like rush comp, it's really good because you can screen off tackle. There's going to be at most 2 nimble tackle ships, right? And you can just send that Dragoon in. It's durable. You can just suicide onto like a Punisher to do not the scram and just let all of your damage apply to the bad guys. So it's really good for a throwaway, oh god, we have to get their ship off of me so I can apply damage type ship. I'm not sure it synergizes well with an Ashimu and Navy Omen. The Navy Omen wants to stay at range, the Ashimu wants some control, the Drekovich wants to like just apply damage from range as well. So I don't know. I think the Ashimu Dragoon Pontifex like comp is just a little bit, just one of those things that looks really good in EFT.
Yeah. Now, looking at the bottom end of a lot of these comps in that sort of T1 destroyer, T1 frigate slot, it seems to be a bit of a like 2 different schools of thought going on. You've got teams like Brave Nubbies, Best Boys, who are bringing essentially damage or tackle ships down there. They've brought Cormorant, Merlin, Corax, Talwar, Punch. None of them do anything overly specific, except the Merlin can tackle the Punisher, can get in there and just not die for a very long time, and the Talwar, Korax, and Cormac can do damage from various ranges, but none of them do anything extra special. Whereas then you've got other teams, like in this case Brave Nubbies, who are bringing a lot of control into that slot. They're bringing the Crucifier and the Vigil, as well as the Punisher and Merlin, because those are pretty good choices. And then the Breacher, because, why the heck not? Why not bring a Breacher? What do you make of that, Bazzalizk? Like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer control, or do you prefer just sort of heavy tackle?
I mean, it's hard to say until the tournament starts. The two comps actually in particular that I've noticed as being, they've brought control ships in both their Tech 1 support and Tech 2 support slots. So you got the Spooky Action at Distance comp, number 1, where they've brought the Maulus and the Sentinel. And the Brave Nubbies comp as well, they're number 1, where they've brought the Crucifier and Sentinel. I think the E-War, even though they're unscripted on the Tracking Disruptors and the Sense Stamps, I think the E-War provided by those ships in the 6-man tournament is going to be really, really strong. And I'm sorry if I've just ruined those team strats by hoping they could sneak those in and no one would see them. Haha, all teams are going to ban the Dracovac. It's no problem, we'll just bring our Maulus and Sentinel comp.
Unfortunately, all the teams had to publish all their comps in advance, so now no one knows. So this is when the mind games really begin. Everyone's like, oh heck, look at all these. Why is everyone else bringing the Caracal Navy issues, or something that we've missed? Like, every team goes through that, wondering if there's something that they haven't seen when everyone else brings a ship that you don't, and then you're like, well, how the hell do we even counter that thing? Elise, I'm sure you've experienced that when you land on grid in some tournament and you see a ship that you just did not expect to see.
Yeah, it happened once when we landed on grid in the Alliance tournament. Just saw a bunch of Vargers, and we had our Widow team. We were like, easy. But we didn't realize that they would be remote ECCMing one each other and, beating us. But I will say the Brave Newbies team, they make me very, very angry because they have a comp that is Ferox, Eagle, Moa, Raptor, Stork, and they put a freaking Breacher with it. They could have just put the Merlin with it. I know they used the Merlin before, but they had they just had the perfect opportunity for Kaldari Rush, which would have been just a team that is amazing to go up against, because you just don't expect it, and it's actually quite a lot of HP to chew through.
Yeah,
it's entirely possible that they brought the Ferox and the Eagle because, and the Moa, because as I'm sure you are aware from spending years and years bullying them, though not recently, the only ships that Brave actually knows how to fly are Moa, Eagles, and Feroxes. This could have just been, we got to make sure that we bring what we know. That's their safe space comp.
I don't know. I mean, that comp actually looks really strong to me. Like, no jokes, not trying to be facetious at all. That comp looks, I think it's probably their strongest comp that they have, right? The Sentinel Crucifier comp is really, really good, but I like the Ferox, Eagle, Moa. Just that core of just raw HP and damage, potential damage at least.
Yeah, I think
it looks really good.
In this format without Logi, I think having the ships with like ASBs and resist bonuses to complement each other are going to be really strong and really tough nuts to break through.
I'm actually more curious to see how so that we see a lot of kind of light missile and rapid light missile. Making an assumption here, comp set up here. So we have. I guess it would be, little fly killers, sort of a mini version. We see, like Zero Talent, it's a Talwar Bifrost Flycatcher, Caracal Navy, Cerberus, any Drake Navy. So imagine running up against that. Like, you're going to lose your entire support wing in the first, 6 to 10 seconds, right? I'm seeing that, I think almost everybody has it. Like, House Gundor's comp one is that. Looks like Old Daddy J's number 1 is kind of similar to that. Brave Nubbies, their number 2 is pretty similar to that. I'm wondering if that's going to end up being the meta, or if everyone's going to sort of be baited into the idea that's like, well, yeah, there's 3 really small ships, so if we just stack rapid lights and light missiles and just wipe them off the field right off the bat, that's going to be a really solid, safe way to win these matches.
Yeah, that's playing to not lose, though. That's not even playing to win, right? So the concept is you kill the tackle, nothing else can catch your DPS, and you're good to go. Unfortunately, on paper, that setup's really great. You're just okay, how does it lose? How does it lose? It just doesn't lose. But it's predicated on really, really, really good piloting. You have to be the best of the best when it comes to piloting these types, because if you do screw up, your finesse team just goes straight into the dumpster, and you can't accomplish anything. You just take that L. So I think the Zero Talent team could probably pull it off. I'd be surprised if they wanted to, right? Because they definitely have. I can see like 2 of their setups are pretty hard counters to the kiting setup. But any team that didn't take a Punisher might not have a similar hard counter. But it looks like everyone took a Punisher, except Stay Frosty.
I think the other danger about these kiting comps is, I can't remember the exact size of the arena in this particular tournament, I'm sure someone will tell me, but the arena edge is basically, this is 6-on-6, the arena edge can be the 7th enemy if you're not careful. If you get too close to that bad boy, he will blow your ship up with nay a blink, he will just eviscerate you instantly. 125 kilometer radius, I am being told. And if you are kiting around, especially in rapid light ships, where you get tackled, as you say, you are DED dead. So you do not want that to happen. You're busy trying to position to make sure stuff's still in your range. You're looking at where people are. If you're very super elite, you're probably doing a little bit of some Chesser maneuvers and feathering around and trying to blah blah blah. But this is a lot to pay attention to, especially if you're talking about selectable damage types, ranges, where your teammates are, where the enemies are, where they're trying to cut you off. And it's very easy to forget about that big lurking boundary sitting out there at 125 kilometers and just sail carelessly over it into oblivion. I mean, PL, of course, done that many a times in Alliance Tournament, and I think one team 2 years ago anchored up and the entire team flew out of the arena.
Yeah, that was a TNT. They magooed themselves outside. They just anchored on one dude, and that dude boundary violated, which is pretty hard. But when we're actually looking at these kite setups, it's kind of funny to see the similar but different kite comps that everyone took. So like Zero Talent has that Drake Navy shoe Serb, Caracal Navy shoe, Flycatcher Bifrost, which is insane, an insanely good combo with a Talwar as well. Like that's just disgusting amounts of alpha. And you look at a team that we consider the same caliber, like Spooky Action at a Distance. They've got the same 3 cores with Drake Navy, Caracal Navy, and Serb, but they have a Flycatcher, Hyena, and Merlin, which would just get eviscerated by the Flycatcher Bifrost Talwar, right? And then you have Tempest, which has the same core that we're talking about, Drake, Serb, Caracal Navy. They've got a Flycatcher Stork Vigil. So Flycatcher Stork, similar to Flycatcher Bifrost. They got that Vigil for target paints, but I don't think that ship's gonna last very long or do anything. So it's cool to see like the different decisions that everyone makes. Some people go for application, some people go for tackle, and then some people just go for pure alpha damage. So it'll be interesting if we ever see any of these comps not banned. I think you just ban them though, like just straight up ban them because they're just so spooky.
Well, especially, they don't have there's no MJD beacons in this. So one of the main ways, obviously it does hurt a kiting team that you can't jump away, but you also don't really have a way to get on top of them, at least in day one. I think, I guess you could fit an MJD, because I saw that you can't do group MJDs, right? So the Command Destroyers can't MJD their teams around, but I don't see any rules about no battlecruiser MJDs, but I might have totally spaced out on that.
I mean, is the Myrmidon just gonna MJD to like a Serb? And
yeah, is that gonna be a thing? Are we gonna? So if BCs can use MJDs, maybe that's the trick. Maybe goons have figured out, they're like, oh yeah, we're bringing the tackle Myrm. Like, surprise, surprise! It just jumps right on top of your Cerberus and grabs it right off the bat. I think that
I was going to say, we saw a bunch of those MGD maneuvers in Alliance Tournament and also in Event T, especially if you're very lucky and your ship can lock the ship at the other end of the arena and you then activate micro drive and jump. You can really surprise people when suddenly, like, this big heavy ship lands straight on top of you with a nice hello and then punches you in the face. But it also leaves a lot of room for error. If you jump straight out of the arena, then that's another way to lose your entire team the match. They're a risky maneuver, and once you click it, you can't unclick it.
Yeah, especially if you get bumped during it. I mean, you hit the button and you're locked in a specific... Like, you can't adjust where you go, but someone else can adjust where you go. So, I don't know. I want to see some MJD magic. That's been, like, both as a viewer, as a player, as a commentator for it, watching people do awesome MJD maneuvers is kind of one of the most collectively impressive things, right? So you don't have to look at it and say, okay, this guy just MJD'd, and everyone's like, okay, cool, what's that? It's like every single person's like, yeah, this is awesome. We all watch it, like the viewers watch it, the team members watch it, the commentators watch it, like the people on the other team are like, oh shit, we got MJD'd on. So I would love to see every single battlecruiser. In fact, you know what? Next time we do this, make it so every battlecruiser has to fit an MJD.
Yeah, only
That's
prop
the
mod.
true plan. Yeah, only prop mod allowed is an MJD.
Do you know,
I think Goons are actually onto something here, and this is again an unironic comment. Like they've got two comms, one with a Myrmidon and one with a Brutix Navy issue. I bet you they take those ships in at 0 and feign like, oh geez, we screwed up, guys, and then just as soon as they get low, just MJD away to safety. Because both of those ships can be super brutally tanky. At the Brutix Navy issue, you can, if you just want to structure tank it for pure bait, send it in at 0. Same with the Myrmidon, and you can even active tank it real hard if you want it as well.
yeah,
So I think,
Devin, remember the triple rep Myrmidon from ye olden days? I don't even know if it's allowed in the rules.
It is not allowed. You can take 2 reps. You can't triple rep, but
I think a triple rep Myrmidon which would not die in most of these comps.
I mean, is a dual rep Myrmidon gonna die without newts? I don't think so.
I think that something that this is a little bit of TQ bias. Like if you remember, those triple rep Myrmidons, even those dual rep Myrmidons that you fight on TQ, that guy has drugs and he has links and he has support and he has surprise on his side. Where in this, they can't like right click and say, consume exile. I now rep 30% harder. So some of those things that are scary, like the triple rep's scary, but I don't think dual reps are quite as bad and oppressive in a situation like this where you can't take drugs in and you can't have somebody, I guess you could fit your Myrmidon for full links. It's going back to Goons. Like I said, this is why they're going to be the winners. We've all decided this already, because the Myrmidon is actually a ship that does not need high slots compared to every other person's battlecruiser.
It should be noted they're the only team that's taken the Myrmidon, so.
And they're going to be the winners, obviously.
You said you can't take drugs. You can't take boosters, but you can take drugs. So.
You can, and then you can use them to help you theory crap.
Yeah.
I hope they win that. I like the Myrmidon. I think the Myrmidon's really cool.
Dude, it's such a... The Myrmidon gives me nightmares because whenever I'm theory crafting a setup, I'm always like, you look at, in a point system, which this isn't, but hypothetically in a point system, you look at the Myrmidon and it is super efficient in terms of points, in terms of HP, utility slots, damage, high slots. It's like great. It's the perfect on-paper ship, but it's terrible. It's just a piece of floating garbage. And it looks great on paper, but can never live up to your dreams. It's a constant disappointment.
It looks cool in space though as well, and on paper.
I mean, gonna have to disagree in that one. I think
I like it, man. I like it a lot.
Pretty garbage as well.
Sure about that?
Yeah, dude.
I mean, personally, I think we should definitely rate some comps based on aesthetics. I'm disappointed that neither, and I have checked this, neither the GMV role-playing team or the Caldari roleplay team have brought entire comps fully from their faction. Like they've pussied out, basically. There's no other word for it. They have been small balls, and they have not decided, hey, we're from Galente, we will only bring a Galente comp. Some of them got close, but they had the opportunity, and they decided, no, our balls are not big enough.
They're like, oh, we want to take a visual so our missiles can apply to targets and we don't instantly die. Weak. But
exactly.
Yeah.
No one got a good roleplay. Like, there's not even like the Drekovic Vedmet Kikimora going on here. Like, why? What are you guys even doing? Why do you? Are you trying to win or something? No, you're supposed to be like winners in regards to the crowd, not winners in regards to the tournament. This is ridiculous. I think there's one Minmatar comp, which is RVB. Thank you, RVB. You guys are the winners in my heart because they're bringing a actual Minmatar rush, and they also are bringing a Thrasher, which is the best ship in EVE Online. Period.
I mean, speaking of best ships, specifically frigates, in this particular competition format, what is the best frigate you can bring, and why is it the fleet issue?
Dude, it's the Punisher for sure. Punisher is the best ship you can take this entire format. It's a brick. It won't get like one shot by these kiting teams. It'll hold the DPS down or screen someone off. It's just the best. And you can look at the teams that I think if you look at the setups where people did select the Punisher, they selected it for a reason, right? And they put it on teams that they value very, very highly.
You know, you actually have quite an interesting point, is the Punisher. It's one of those ships that when it lands on grid, before the match even starts, you, as a team and as an FC, you have to look at that Punisher and decide right at the start, how are we going to deal with it? It's one of the few ships you have to look at straight from the start, make a decision, then never change, because if you decide to kill it, and then you don't, you're basically buggered, because you can't kill that, because it's just so blinking tanky. I know I did find one on TQ I was fighting, and he had a dual plate Punisher, and it had just a sickening amount of EHP, and still had the ability to do some damage as well. So if they fit it like that, and you waste loads of time killing it, sure, you might kill it in the end, but by that point you've lost half your fleet. So do you just ignore it, or do you try and kill it? Like, what are you doing? It's just such a important ship, I think. So I think you're right there, saying that's one of the best ships you can bring.
And I think the Zero Talent team probably has the best answer to a Punisher. I think it's their kiting comp. I think they took so much damage that they must have just done some practices, and they must have just been burned by Punishers too many times. And it's like the worst feeling when your super finesse team just gets zonked out by a single nerd in a Punisher with no guns on it. Just I've got a microwave drive and a scram. I've got literally 2 buttons. That's all I got to do, and it can just ruin your super finesse high APM team. So I think they just got mad and said, we're just taking full damage and we'll just blap this sucker. But yeah, the Punisher.
Not really a way to kill them. Great. Like without light missiles, and just kind of looking through here, they're so hard to kill for a T1 frigate. Like none of these, with the exception of the Triglavian ships, right? There isn't really any big ship that can apply to a Punisher here. Luckily for anyone going up against Punishers, it's not like in the AT where you can actually rep them, but at the same time, I mean, there's also not battleships, at least in day one. Like the traditional way of taking Punishers down is if you could take them down, nuke them out with like a battleship, or like have a Vindicator. We saw a ton of them last year. Vindicator's going to alpha a Punisher pretty much, but everything else on here just has trouble actually hitting them. So there's what it should be. Ban the Punisher teams out. Don't ban the Drekavik. But if you notice, a lot of the Punisher teams happen to also be the Drekavik teams.
That goes back to that whole ban bait conversation we had earlier on. Some people also say a Merlin is kind of like poor man's shield Punisher. I mean, how much do you agree with that?
I mean, it's true, right? The Merlin is the poor man's shield Punisher, but it's so much more poor. It's definitely, it's not the Jeff Bezos of shield ships. It's kind of, I don't know, some dude who's a millionaire. I'm sure there's a lot, but I just can't think of any. But yeah, the Merlin's not, it's good. It's bordering on great, but it's no Punisher. The Punisher is just like head and shoulders above.
Jin'taan's just mentioned the heiresses that I think 4 teams in their comps, 4 or 5. Have any of us ever seen an heiress on TQ?
Dude, the Heiress is a stacked ship as well. It's got the mid-slot problem, which is why I'm surprised a lot of people took it, but it does a lot of damage. Like, it can definitely augment. If you have a team that's kind of low on damage, this Heiress can come in and just out of nowhere just start zonking stuff. And the Best Boys guys have an Heiress and a Kikimora, so you're talking, what, like just over 1,000 DPS from 2 ships alone.
Yeah, if that Heiress is blaster fit, and it just sort of, scoots around at range, but like, hey, don't look at me, don't worry, I'm just sitting over here, I'm not a threat, ignore me. And then that Merlin gets in on top of someone, gets them tackled, and then, Heiress just overheats his little micro warp drive, comes running in, overheats his blasters, and then just shits all over your face. Like, that is a lot of DPS, and especially, as you mentioned, no Logi. If you get 1,000 plus, I mean, Merlin is what, like 150, 200, Kikimora, once it's ramped up, is probably 400, and then an Heiress can do more like 800 if you just max DPS it. So that's like nearly 1400 DPS before you've even got to the other stuff. and not many ships on here, if they're tackled by the Merlin, can survive that damage for very long.
Yeah, the
They're
Kikimora is
really
one of my
fast, too.
favorite ships. It's such a sorry, you can go talk about the awesome Eris. It's actually pretty good.
That's pretty much it for the Eris. I think we hit it. I mean, you can they're like Hecates that aren't quite as good as Hecates. I feel like that's a safe thing to say, and I understand why we're not there's no T3 destroyers in this, because they're just, in a format like this, a T3 destroyer is heads and shoulders better than some of the stuff. The same reason why there's no assault frigates, we're keeping those out. But I was gonna say, Kikimora. I think that's the other ship that every single team has a comp that is based around a Kikimora, and they're so weird because like a shield Kikimora does battlecruiser DPS, an armor Kikimora does cruiser DPS and is also tankier. It's a really interesting ship. Like that's kind of one of those. It's not like a Punisher in the sense where it's like you have to either kill it or accept the fact that it's going to tackle you, but I think it's kind of similar in the sense where it's like, well, you need to either kill it fast or accept the fact that it's going to ramp up in 45 seconds and be 100% tracking versus literally every ship in the game doing 600 DPS to you.
You can also dual prop that thing. You can get a Mark Warp Drive and an AB on it and not sacrifice a huge amount. And that means that you can get in on top of people really quickly and then switch to that AB, and then suddenly you're really hard to hit.
Yeah, those ships have a really small signature radius, and interestingly enough, we were talking about the Eris, now we're talking about the Kiki. Not a lot, but there are a few teams that have paired those ships together. So the Best Boys team, the Goon team, the RVB team, and the Tempest team all have one setup that has an Eris and a Kikimora, which is really, really spooky in terms of deeps. In fact, the RVB team, I know I kind of poo-pooed on their Reykjavik Ashimu team earlier, but their Harb Navy Demos, Navy Executor, Eris, Kikimora, Catalyst team, if that gets on top of you and you just don't know what to do, that you're just melted. You're done in like a minute.
Flex tape can't fix that.
Yeah, it's just a disgusting amount of beeps that can be pounded on your face.
Yeah, and on your face it will be pounded unless you can remove it. The other thing is, like, I mean, it's one thing to just bring an absolutely incredible control comp and finesse and run around and, web people down, track and disrupt them, do all this wonderful elite tier stuff. You're double clicking in space and you're doing all your bits and pieces that everyone's very impressed with, and you pat yourself in the back and you're like, look at me, mum, I'm elite. And then some bunch of nerds come in with just this blaster rush team that just absolutely just rails you so hard that before you could even say, wait, this isn't fair, this isn't how it's supposed to happen, you're all dead. You're just being eviscerated, like overheated DPS, bang, gone, before you could even blink, and then post on Reddit and complain about it. You are absolutely done.
It's one of those teams where like you go up against it once and you're like, oh geez, I didn't expect that, I'll know what to do next time, and then you're like, oh shit, there is no next time, I'm just done. So that's a feels bad, man. Also, I want to bring up one last thing, not one last thing, but one thing about ships. In this setup, in this format, in fact, the Sentinel seems to be like the dopest EAF you can bring in terms of what it can do. Yeah, you can't bring, you can't script your tracking disruptors or missile guidance disruptors, but the Sentinel does nukes, tackle, and disruption, and it's kind of hard to kill. But only, what, 3 teams took it?
Yeah,
I get that it's a high skill, it's a spooky high skill cap ship. Like it's probably the highest skill cap in this entire format. I can't think of one that's a little bit higher. Kiki would be real close, but I
mean, it's paper thin though. That's its kind of main downfall, is if somebody looks at you wrong, you're dead.
Just don't die then. I mean, that's like, it's easy, right?
Elite tournament wisdom from Elise Randolph of Pandemic Legion there. Thank you very much for your insight. Right, so I think we'll start to wrap up now. We've been rambling on for just over an hour. Probably 10 minutes of actual content and worthwhile analysis has come out of our collective mouths. If you've stuck with us this far, we apologise. And if you're a goon, then you're probably quite happy because we predicted that you're going to win. So, well done to the goons. Does anyone have anything in particular they want to say in advance of the kickoff of the Stream Fleet Showdown Invitational to on Saturday, 20th of April at 1945 Eve time.
I'm quite excited just to see explosions. And I know, like, all these teams are quite high caliber. They've been putting a lot of work in, and it's just great to see like an outlet for these guys to have fun and show off. Yeah, we'll just call it what it is: show off and flaunt their super skills at Evo.
The actual start of the broadcast is 2000. That's the call time for everyone.
Ah, there you go. 2000 Eve time, Saturday, 20th of April. Explosions guaranteed. Jin'taan, can you guarantee?
I can guarantee that at least one ship will explode in each match.
Excellent. And if you don't get explosions on every single match, Jin'taan personally will pay each of you out there listening 50 plex. That's 50 plex for every match with no explosion to everybody watching. Guaranteed by Mr. Jin'taan. Thank you, Jin'taan. BBP, anything you want to say about this weekend coming up?
No, not really. I'm just excited to be watching. I don't think I'm actually going to be speaking all that much, but I will be seeing it. I will be watching it. I'm excited to see Goons win, and I will be there for the next weekend, which I think we're going to be talking about at a later time. So I'm just, it's pumped. It's only a couple days out. You know, it crept up on us, and it's awesome to see player-run tournaments happening.
And the Bazzalizk, any message to the teams? Anything you want to say?
Just thanks for listening. If you're still here listening to us rambling on about stuff that we're probably wrong about.
Yeah, that really does hit the nail on the head. We probably have been wrong for most of this stuff, but I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you tune in this weekend, and we will do another podcast at some point during the week next week before the second weekend of the Stream Fleet Show Invitational. Once again, it is the 20th of April at 2000 Eve time. Tune in for some explosions. It's great to see tournaments back on in competitive esports after the Lance tournament decided to take a hiatus. It's really good to see that some members of the community like Jin'taan are picking up that mantle and carrying it forward, and at such a high engagement level with these teams. I think we're going to see some fantastic matches over the next couple of weeks. I've been Ithica Hawk. You are listening to the Caster's Couch. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.